Hi class, my name is Wei Wei, and right now I'm doing the empirical paper analyze for our Econ 144B class. So the paper summary part is economics that generally agree that extreme housing regulations and restrictive land use policies tend to limit housing accessibility and thus push rental and house purchase prices high. Which ends up locking low income earners out of the housing market. So, in this paper, Stropper evaluated the basis for deregulation and upzoning as strategy to reduce housing inequality by increasing the number of accessible units for low income earners in the urban areas. The paper also explores the efficiencies and limits associated with these strategies in the social economics of urban housing. So this research paper has some purpose. So this mainstream view about housing construction in prosperous areas as a route to greater prosperity and equality in the winner regions. To evaluate the common view and perceptions of housing constructions in urban areas, the author relied on the prevalent claims that restrictive zoning and other regulations in the prosperous regions are likely to limit the expansion of housing supply, that these constraints could drive up the price of houses, and that this only adds to the income of developers and landowners and transfer the incomes away from workers living in or seeking to live in these regions, whether as buyers or renters. And in doing so, enhancing interpersonal income inequalities. So, which means that the author basically saying that if we have some more restrictions on the housing constructions, it's just a way to increase the income for constructors, not really helping the renters or buyers to improve the ability to purchase the houses. And the empirical analysis and results saying that considering the extensive nature of this research study and subsequent execution, the empirical sections was based on the analysis of housing market and economic data articulated in the following structure questions. So question number 1, does economic growth mostly from city size or from urban specialization? So the theory here is, although it has been shown as that many cities with accelerated population growth are also likely to experience accelerated economic growth, that is not always the case, as no previous research has established a correlation between population growth and economic growth. So the method is to test this question. So the researcher compared U.S. intercity data on population growth and change in GDP per capita between 2000 and 2006. These findings are as displayed in this table over here. So as we can see that this table only shows consistent figures in GDP trends within the research period, thus implying that impact of population growth on GDP was inalienable from the standard population trends. However, it's worth noting that urban areas with the diminishing populations also experienced diminishing GDP figures, which points to be permanent association between the two. However, this can be explained by decrease of a city's economic capability. For instance, depleted mines with reduced population size. Question number 2, is the interregional migration shaped principally by housing prices? Well, the theory applied over here is previous mainstream theoretical models have associated low levels of housing regulation together with high population growth rate with the massive urban sprawlers in the USA's southeast and southwest cities. So the method applied over here is to answer this question. The authors use regional migration statistics and trends from the 1990s to determine the influences behind migration, and if price of housing has displayed a huge role in this dynamics. The results over here shows that researchers established that while regulation played a role in urban development, much of it has been influenced by development capacities of region. For instance, in cases where municipals support structural development and business areas such as manufacturing centers, it was found that people were more likely to settle and develop. So to analyze the findings, contrary to common notions of urban housing deregulations and its impact on the socio-economic growth of cities, the study identifies that among their issues, there is very scanty evidence supporting these common assumptions. From an economics standpoint, relaxing zoning and other planning regulations in the most prosperous cities does not necessarily intuitive to the path to economic growth. Researchers identified that while highly populated urban areas are generally more likely to record high GDP figures, there was no evidence pointing to the population growth as the factor behind this economic progress. Additionally, the common assumptions that housing deregulation is a factor of behind population growth was not supported by the data. In this research, the authors identified that other factors beyond relaxed housing regulations, such as local government support for viable business and better opportunities, were more likely to inspire migrations into this urban center as people who were attracted by opportunities who find ways to settle despite the presence or absence of zoning laws. Last part of my PowerPoint is about the extension. The finding of this research study inform future policy making in zoning and regulation of urban housing settlements for sustainability. Key figure topics of exploration and policy making to consider this research finding include the economics and politics of city sustainability amid deregulation. The second one is gentrification and potential impact deregulation in enabling the potential trafficking of protected low-income neighbors. The third one is alternative and essential platforms for urban equality and population redistribution. For instance, by supporting economic structures such as business infrastructure in all cities equally. And the main reference is from this Mr. Stropper's paper in 2020s. And here's the link that you could find the full article. Thank you for listening.